Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder when I drop my kid off at school and deliver an episode to you while I walk home. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good morning, listeners. It is a cloudy Monday morning here in suburban Chicago, and I'm pleased to be bringing you episode 2 of season 3. I guess the interregnum episode has to technically be episode 1 because it's 201. I want to leave numbers on the episodes, so it's episode 201. So this is episode 2, but it's the first real episode of season 3. Thank you for joining me here on Pick Up and Deliver. Lots of interesting stuff going on. I am Geek of the Week as we speak. Geek of the Week is a regular recurring Board Game Geek list that allows you to, have the personal spotlight for a week. It's pretty fun. Regular listener Chris Graves nominated me. Thank you, Chris. Lots of fun as a thing to do. So I'm very excited to be doing that. So if you have questions for me that you want asked in that venue, pop over to the Geek of the Week Geek list. I will post a link in the show notes. So at the beginning of the year, lots of things to talk about. I have a bunch of different episode ideas lined up, and I've been thinking about what kinds of things I can do this year to keep variety in play as we work our way through the year. I think my goal is to do another 100 episodes or so. I think that's a good rhythm. 2 or 3 a week for most of the year will get me to 100 pretty reasonably well, and also not exhaust me with boredom. I certainly am going to stick to my irregular publishing schedule, so when I feel like making an episode, I will, which will probably be 2 or 3 times a week. And I'll probably do it sort of like this. I'm saving gameplay talk until the end of the month, which is just a few days away. I'll probably have 2 episodes before my February top of the stack update. So we just have a couple episodes to get us oriented for the year. So today, I thought I would talk about, with the new year here, I mentioned this a little bit in the last episode, but with the new year here, it's a time of rejuvenation, a time of new challenges and ideas, new things that we like to track. And so I have some new goals. I talked about those a little bit in the top of the stack, but I thought I'd talk about them with a little more detail today. In particular, I wanted to talk about my replacement for the 10 for 10. So last year, if you weren't listening, I did a 10 for 10. Toward the end of the year, it got a little bit draining. I ended up playing one game 8 times in December, which was fun. It was actually fun to kind of deep dive that game, but ended up being more of a chore than I would have liked. And while I want my challenges to provoke gameplays that I might not otherwise pursue, I don't want it to become a chore. So we decided instead of doing a 10 for 10 this year, we would do a 20 for 5. Or 20 by 5, meaning we're picking 20 games that we're going to try to play 5 times each instead. It's still 100 games, but it's a more diverse group of games and a wider selection of possible games. It also means even if we pick a game we didn't like, 5 plays of it probably isn't too bad. It's easy enough to pursue. We also decided that it would be more of a family effort, so each family member got I got 40% of the board because it's my board, and my wife and each of my kids each picked 20% of the board. So each of us picked 4 games, or they each picked 4 games, and I picked 8 that we want to try to play 5 times each. And one of the rules is we only put it up on the board if the person who picked it is playing. That wasn't necessarily the case last year. Like, for instance, last year my daughter picked Gizmos, and I played Gizmos several times without her and counted those plays because that's the way of it. But we decided this year for the 20 by 5, the 4 games that each of the other family members picked only get marked off if they're playing. So that's an interesting challenge as well. But it really does encourage the family game time, which is kind of the goal of the whole deal. So what I wanted to talk about today is give you a sense of what the 20 games are, but I didn't just want to list them. There's no fun in that. So I looked at the games and I thought about motivations and driving factors that lead us to choose games. And admittedly here, I'm psychoanalyzing my family. I haven't really talked to them about why did they pick these games, but I'm putting words in their mouth, probably unfairly, but there it is. I've decided there's 5 big kind of main emotions that drive us to pick the games on our 20 by 5. And so I'm going to divide them up by that emotion and then reveal to you what those are. So the first one is freshness or recent plays. The games we've been playing recently sound fun and fresh and makes us want to play them more. I would say my son is the strongest person driven by that. 3 of his games, I think, can reasonably be marked as recent. That's Rattle Battle, Grab the Loot, The Final Flicktier, and The Adventurers. He got the new Temple of Horrors for Christmas. I think I mentioned that in the last episode. Or Temple of Shock. And we decided that either of the Adventurers games counts for those 5 games. But all 3 of those, it seems like he picked them because we've been playing them recently and they're on his mind. For myself, I picked Nanty Narking as a game I've been playing a lot recently. My daughter picked It's a Wonderful World and Lovelace and Babbage as games that she really likes because we've been playing them recently. And my wife picked Everdell, which I was kind of surprised about. It seems like she really likes Everdell, but I have been consistently winning pretty strongly. And so we don't play it super often because she gets frustrated that I win pretty significantly, and so then we don't play it for a while, and then she remembers that she enjoys it, and we play it again, and then I win again. So hopefully she'll start beating me soon, and that will become less of an issue. Which leads me to the next one. That was kind of an aspirational idea, right? It's kind of a suggestion of a thing I'd like to have happen. I'd say that's the second category that drives us to choose games, is this aspirational notion, this idea of putting a game on here because we really want to play it, and thinking by putting it on there it's going to get us to play it more. For myself, Elysium and Trickerion I both put on there as aspirational games that I really want to play, and I'm going to include Trickerion in another list as well in a minute, or another category. But my wife put Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which is a game we keep getting out, and I read the rules and then we never get around to playing it, but she's wanted to play it for a long time. And my daughter put Orleans. That's one of her favorites, but we hardly ever play it, and so putting it on there as a way to get us to play it more, and we already have once, so that was great. The next category I'd point towards nostalgia. So nostalgia, by which I mean we have good memories of playing the games, and it makes us want to play them again because we remember having a lot of fun with them. I think these are the hardest ones to get played because I'm not sure they stand up to the repeated plays of the 20 by 5. It turns out that they're more fun in memory, at least some of them. My wife picked Miskatonic School for Girls, which is a fine little deck builder. I suspect by the end of the 5 plays, it's going to be ready for the sell pile, I'm sad to say. It's fun, it's just not super deep. My son picked Stuffed Fables, which I think he remembers the fun we had playing it a couple years ago. And my daughter picked Roll for the Galaxy with that same goal. I missed one. I myself, I picked Shakespeare as another of those aspirational games. That's one I know I want to play more, and I just haven't gotten off my shelf. So Shakespeare and Elysium and Trickerion are my 3 kind of aspirational games, things I'd really like to play. Then a couple of games I put on my list every year are big games that I really want to play, but they take effort to get to the table. Obviously, Trickerion is one of those. I would also say Pulsar 2849 and Brass. Now, Brass, I think it plays in like an hour and a half if you know how to play it. So really the aspirational part, or the big part there, is teaching it and getting people interested in playing a pretty heavy game. Now, I did play a game of it with my daughter, and she said she liked it, so I'm hoping she'll play again soon. That'll make it really easy to get that done. I've also got a game of Brass Birmingham scheduled. I decided that either Brass counts toward this goal. Oh, so nostalgia, going back to nostalgia, my wife also said Ex Libris was her fourth game choice. And there again, I think it's the fun of the memory more than the fun of the game. The last couple of times we've played Ex Libris, I haven't really enjoyed it as much. It's not solvable necessarily, but it feels pretty samey every time we play it. I've cooled on it a bit. We'll see. If I play it 5 times this year and still enjoy it, great. I wouldn't be surprised if we play it 5 times this year and it leaves the collection. So I talked about the big games, and then finally I have a couple games that I put in here because they are light and easy to teach, easy to get to the table, fun to play with a variety of people. One of those is a new card game we got for Christmas this year, Oh My Goods. I really like this. It's a fairly light game. It takes like 45 minutes with 4 players, but it's just a deck of cards. But it's Alexander Pfister, and it uses reusable or multi-use cards in a really interesting way. It's a sort of standard engine building game, but plays really smooth, has interesting choices, a little bit of push your luck, a little bit of strategy. So far I've really enjoyed it. I've played a couple plays of it. So that's Oh My Goods. And then finally, Bloody Inn is another of these sort of lighter games that I think is really interesting, really cool theme. I mean, terrifying and gross theme, but lovely. It's about running an inn and murdering people for their money. But that game's really interesting too and easy to teach, plays relatively quickly. So, if you've been keeping track, that's 20. I don't think I left any out. I think I mentioned my daughter picked Roll for the Galaxy, which I said was a nostalgic and aspirational choice. I don't know if I included that one. I will include a link to my top of the stack list, which includes all 20 games in a more sensible order, in case you want to review it for yourself. So for the big games, I think I said it was Brass and Pulsar 2849 and Trickerion. I'm just repeating myself now. The one thing that's not on the list that I've had on my top 10 lists the last few years are campaign games. The past few years, we've played Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, we've played Arkham Horror, we've played Legacy of Dragonholt and Detective, Modern Crime Story. All of these are really interesting campaign games where you're going through a narrative, solving mysteries and stuff, and I'm sure we'll play some more of those this year. There's another Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective box set coming out. But I think for the most part, that's not on the docket this year. We didn't add one to our 20 by 5, in part because I haven't really picked up any new ones. We still have Gloomhaven. We did play one game of Gloomhaven already this year, and it was great. I want to get back into that. But generally, in terms of the goals for the year, we don't have any campaign games on there. So, well, that's my 20 by 5. Hopefully gives you some insight into the kinds of games you're going to be seeing me pursue in the coming year. What kinds of goals have you set for yourself? We already started this conversation over on the Board Game Geek Guild number 3269 for Pick Up and Deliver. I encourage you to go over there and join the conversation. We could either start a new thread about this episode or continue the one from the top of the stack update at the beginning of the month. So, to come in this coming year, I'm going to continue to do the Board Game Sommelier, and I'm interested in, when I started this podcast, I thought I would be bringing a fair amount of my sort of scholarly perspective to it, and I'm not going to turn it into a big teaching thing, but I certainly am interested in bringing some of that expertise. Somebody asked Tom Bassel on a recent Q&A if they wanted to make a video channel, what should they do? And he said, do something different. And I realized that some of the stuff I do on this podcast is pretty different. And obviously my gimmick of walking is silly and interesting as a creative constraint. But sometimes I do just drift into what have I been playing lately, which I think is good. It's fun to hear what your friends have been playing, and you, dear listener, are a friend of mine. So hopefully you find that interesting. But I think that there's some benefit to the kinds of analysis and perspective I can bring, given my history and professional practice, that make for good content and should be fun to listen to. So I'm going to try to do that a little bit more this year. If you have suggestions or commentary on things you've enjoyed in the past 200 episodes, I'd love to hear those as well. You can reach me by email, Brendan@Rattlebox Games, or on Board Game Geek, Wombat929 is my username, or you could just post something in the Board Game Geek forum. Well, that's about all the time I have for today. I thank you for joining me on the walk, and I hope that your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.